World War I began as the result of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and tension between European nations that finally snapped. It lasted from 1914 to 1918. The combatants of this war included the Central Powers and the Allied forces. Although the armistice signed on the 11th of November 1918 ended the fighting, the war wasn't over until the 18th of June 1919, which was when the Treaty of Versailles was signed.
Wait, what was the Treaty of Versailles, Brian?
To be more specific about what the Treaty of Versailles really was, let's rock and roll with our video!
On 1919, the Paris Peace Conference, also known as the Versailles Peace Conference, began. It involved diplomats from 32 countries, and the major decisions were the creation of League of Nations, as well as the treaty for the defeated side, Germany. The Palace of Versailles was the principal royal residence of France from 1682 under the Louis IV until the start of French Revolution in 1789 under Louis XVI. It is located 20 kilometers away from the center of Paris.
The Versailles Palace was chosen because it was considered the most appropriate venue because of its size, since it had to accommodate the hundreds of people that were involved. Months of tough negotiations and fierce arguments among all the countries that were a part of the conferences. It was designed to create long-lasting peace following the 4 years of the devastating war in Europe.
There were also major and highlighted names that really affect to the term of the Treaty of Versailles.
Oh, I know! They were David Lloyd George of Great Britain, Georges Clemenceau of France, Vittorio Emanuele of Italy, and Woodrow Wilson of the USA, who were also known as the Big Four.
However, the Italian Prime Minister Vittorio Emanuele was the delegate but was shut out from the decision-making, so we end up with the Big Three.
Each had different points of view and ideas for what the terms should be, but the Big Three were divided on two main points of view. President Woodrow Wilson had his own ideas for the treaty. They were known as the 14 points. The main points included were this. The 14th point proposing a general association of nations that would protect great and small states alike. Ideas for national self-determination, forgiving Germany and creating the League of Nations in order to prevent another world war. However, his main ideas were denied by France and Britain. On the other hand, Britain and France were both concerned with national security and wanted to strip Germany of its war-making power. In particular, France wanted revenge. Adopting Wilson's 14th point, the treaty contained 15 parts with 440 articles. The treaty can be also divided into 4 main sections: territorial, military, financial, and general. Territorial. Land was taken from Germany and the League of Nations controlled their overseas colonies in Africa. Military. The army was reduced to 100,000 men and were not allowed to use tanks. Financial. Germany had to pay reparations of the war. General. Germany had to admit full responsibility for war damage, which was Clause 231, the War Guilt Clause. In here, as tough as these provisions were, the harshest was Article 231, which is also known as the War Guilt Clause. It placed sole responsibility for the war on Germany. League of Nations also came out of the treaty and was to be an international association whose goal would be to keep peace among nations. A compromise was reached on the 18th of June 1919. The Treaty of Versailles was ready for signing. Germany was shown the document, but there was no negotiation, their rebuttal ignored. All delegates met at the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles. 2 German representatives were forced to sign the treaty.
Since Germans were excluded from the decision making and only signed in it, they were really mad and react super bitterly to the Allies due to all of this reason. They were blamed for causing the war, having the land taken, which were given back to many countries, and also create new nations, reducing their army to 100,000 men, not a lot of tanks and air force, reduced navy, demilitarizing this area of Germany, have to pay the reparations amounting in about $55 billion and being denied a seat in the League of Nations. The German people resented the Treaty of Versailles because it made Germany weak and wanted to make the German people feel ashamed and humiliated.
In the end, here are the things we can really learn from the treaty. First of all, the reparation for war damage should not be paid by one combatant, but by all of the combatants, because one country isn't responsible for all of the damage caused. In this case, Germany wasn't the only country who was causing war damage. Second, no one should be excluded from deciding on what the terms of a treaty should be. For example, Germany shouldn't have been left out, and because of that, the Allies used that as a chance to weaken and seek revenge on Germany, instead of looking at it from Germany's side and negotiating for reconciliation. Lastly, revenge doesn't equal peace among countries, like how Britain and France decided to take revenge on Germany by weakening its military power and trying to make it go bankrupt, causing unfair punishment among the participants in World War I. One cause of World War II was because of the hatred Germany felt towards the Treaty of Versailles. Thank you for listening to us.